Hi, everyone. So I'm really elated to have with us a special guest today, Rosy Ahuja. Rosy is actually a nutritional therapist, and she has a diploma in nutritional medicine and a master's in psychology. She is registered with the British Association of Natural Medicine. Very, very warm welcome, Rosy. Thank you so much for your time today. Rosy, why don't you tell us what interests you, and like why did you choose to go into the nutritional route?
Right. Okay, I will. So I was my degree is actually in psychology. So then I ventured into doing teaching A-level psychology, which I have been doing for 24 years now. And then I got married, had children. Then when my daughter was starting school, so she was 4 or 5, she picked up norovirus at school, and she was quite ill after that. And she was literally, she was being sick and vomiting, and it just didn't seem to basically subside for quite a while.
Yeah.
So we ended up with a pediatrician. The pediatrician said there's nothing wrong with her, but as a mother, you do know that there's something not right. So then I ended up, somebody recommended a herbalist. I ended up going to this herbalist. And this is after months of her being sick. And when I say she was sick, it was almost like a reflux reaction. She'd eat anything, and then she'd end up vomiting. She was losing weight. Mm-hmm. And that's quite disconcerting for, a mom, as you can imagine. And then I took her to this herbalist, and the herbalist basically said, oh, she has a little bit of inflammation in her sphincter muscle, which is here. And basically he gave me some herbs. Literally within 2 days, vomiting completely stopped. And then I was at that point in my life where I was thinking, do I do a PhD in psychology, or do I go and do something else? And then I just thought, actually, we are, I would say, we're at the mercy of doctors. And not to take anything away from doctors, because I believe they do an absolutely fabulous job. However, I realized that actually you have to take responsibility of your well-being and for your family's well-being, because I was so ignorant to anything, the notion of what food does or notion of what lifestyle does. And, you're in the daily role of life. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to do a 6-week course on this. And then I'm going to find out a little bit more about, well-being and nutrition. And ended up going to the College of Naturopathic Medicine and enrolled on a basically a diploma for 3 years, which then I did. And it wasn't very intentional, and it was with a vision to basically change career or anything, because I love my teaching job as well. So then I thought, what do I do with it? Now I've done it now. So then I went and I decided to go part-time, and just 1 day a week. And then I've started now taking clients, and I do nutrition on a Friday. So Friday is my nutrition day. And just because I think it's really important to share what I've learned. And I think that it's about education, and it's my hobby. And I feel that the more we educate people, the more responsibility people take of their own well-being. And like I said, you're not the mercy of somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really, really nice to know. I mean, given that you've had a personal experience, it shows how much passion you put into it. So that's really, really great to know, Rosy. So we've had some questions that came in from people who wanted to have your input into this. So the first one that I have is about gut health. So how does it affect everything else in the body, and how can we improve it? I know it's a vast topic, so let's try to discuss as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, gut health is at the basis of all well-being, okay? So all illnesses actually start in the gut, okay? So, and when I say illnesses, I'm not just talking about physical illnesses, I'm talking about mental illnesses as well. So mental well-being, there is a vagus nerve which runs from our stomach straight to our brain, and that is two-way traffic, okay? And so when you say, I've got a gut feeling, that is where that notion of the gut feeling actually comes from. So when we're talking about gut health, unless your gut is right, that will be the cause of some problems, okay? And when I say your gut is right, you're able to absorb food, you're able to digest food, you are eliminating on a regular basis, and the elimination is as healthy as possibly can be, okay? I mean, some people in practice, when we, you know, I realize that some people don't go for 2, 3, 4 days, and that is their norm. But we know that that actually isn't very normal. Okay. So, you know, when you're talking about skin conditions, they start in the gut. When you're talking about pain, inflammation, that starts in the gut. Okay. Now, there's many reasons why people's guts are compromised, essentially. I mean, and it goes down from the food we're eating. Obviously, it's what we're ingesting, and also, though, how much we're absorbing, and also what we're not absorbing as well. Okay. So, and there's so many factors that play a part. For example, your gut will be compromised if you've even had 1 dose of antibiotics. Okay. That actually depletes all of your bacteria. It depletes your good bacteria. Obviously, it eradicates the problem. It depletes the bad bacteria, but it's going to eradicate the good bacteria. And that in itself is problematic, because we now know that we are hosts to, we used to think we were host to the microbiome. We were host to the bacteria that resides within us. But now we know actually the bacteria is hosting us. There are billions and billions of bacteria, good bacteria. And if that bacteria is compromised, that's going to cause problems. Okay. Now we talk about serotonin. So if, for people who don't know, serotonin is your happy hormone. Okay. It is what keeps us happy. It keeps us, you know, it's just what we need to produce. 90% of serotonin is actually produced in your gut. Okay. So if your gut again is compromised, that's going to be the source of the lack of serotonin production. And therefore that's going to affect depression, anxiety conditions, ADHD, all of these factors that we don't really consider. Okay. The other factor for gut is obviously what we're eating. Okay. Now, you know, the process of digestion starts from the moment that we stop thinking about food. Now, if we're eating processed food, for example, okay, that preparation time has already been eliminated. Okay, when we start preparing the food, the smells of the food, the chopping of the food, we are sending messages to our brain to get ready for the food that we're going to digest. Now, if I stick a meal into the microwave and I heat it up, then actually I'm missing that whole process of digestion. Okay. And then if you ever do this to your mouth, we know that as soon as you put your fingers to your mouth, your digestive juices start to flow. Okay. Then we put the food in our mouth. However, then we are not chewing properly. Okay. So on average, they say we should chew 35 times each morsel of food. Now, you know, I as a nutritional therapist, knowing that, it is really difficult to do. And plus you'd be there for 3 hours. Okay. But just being conscious that actually, am I eating on the go? Am I eating in the car? Am I putting my body into a parasympathetic state? Am I in a rest digest state before I start eating? Now we think about, like, in British culture, they used to do the Lord's Prayer before they ate. Now the purpose of the Lord's Prayer was to actually calm the body down before you're about to eat. So that's why any form of prayer, just taking 3 deep breaths before we start eating will put your body into a state that it's ready to take that food. Okay. Then the food goes into your stomach. Okay. Now the problems that can happen there's 2 main problems. One, you could have a lack of stomach acid. Okay. Stomach acid is needed in the stomach, but it's not needed anywhere. Okay. And the stomach acid is needed to break down the food so that that food can be absorbed. As we age, if we've had antibiotics, if we're eating foods which are not increasing the stomach acid and that compromised, okay, then we're not going to breaking down that food. Now, if that food, so often when people say they're getting heartburn, it's usually because of a lack of stomach acid, not much. So when people go, I've got acidity, okay, and they say my food isn't breaking down and the food is rising, actually that's because it hasn't been broken down in the stomach the way it should be. Hence why you end up with acidity. Okay. So then also the other thing is digestive enzymes. Are we getting enough digestive enzymes to help that food that we've eaten to break down? Okay. So, and how do we do that, right? So the basics of digestive enzymes are, there's many digestive enzymes, like there's amylase, the protease, okay, to break down the carbohydrates, to break down the protein, to break down any fats, okay? Now, if we are not digesting foods which allow us to break down that food, then we're going to be compromised again. Okay.
Yeah.
So if people do have issues, one is obviously, you take a digestive enzyme, and that can be done through food. So you could have, you could have bitter foods before your meal, like rocket salad, and you could have that. That enables your digestive enzymes to start developing. You could also have apple cider vinegar. Okay, so apple cider vinegar is one way which helps to support your stomach acid. It helps with the production of stomach acid. So having some apple cider vinegar, which has to be unpasteurized, and on the bottle, if you buy it, has to say with the mother. And but basically what that means, it's got its natural bacteria in, which supports the stomach acid production. Then if you have that 15 minutes before a meal, then that will also get the body, the stomach, ready for that food. If that doesn't work, then obviously there are supplements that you can take. You can take hydrochloric acid, stomach acid, like HCl, to help you. But it depends on how compromised, the stomach is and how bad the problem would be. Furthermore, you're talking about prebiotics and probiotics. So I mentioned the microbiome, the bacteria in the gut, but some people, diets are void of prebiotics and probiotics. Okay, it's become the buzzword. All right, so people all know, oh yeah, I need to take prebiotics and I need to take probiotics, but actually you can through your diet. Okay, and every single culture that we have out there essentially have their own version of probiotics. Like in Indian culture you have lassi, that's a probiotic. Okay, a jar essentially is it can be fermented. If you do it sort of, you ferment it into lemon juices and things. Any fermented food is going to have the bacteria. And then obviously you can again buy supplements, and there's always a supplement that you could go to, but it goes to how big the problem is anyway. And the prebiotic foods are essential, because if you do not have a prebiotic, then the bacteria doesn't have anything to feed off. So bacteria has to feed off something. So your prebiotic foods are like leeks and onions and garlic. Okay, these are all foods. Cold potatoes. So I'm not an advocate of cold potatoes, generally, because obviously they do spike your blood sugars quite massively. Okay, and it's almost equivalent to having white bread or having anything white in your food. However, as cold potatoes, like as a potato salad, they then turn into a prebiotic because they have undigestible fibers in them. So that allows the good bacteria to then feed and then create more bacteria to try and rebalance and repopulate the gut.
Okay, brilliant. I mean, Rosy, this is amazing. I've already learned so much, and I really want to go back to and listen to it again. It's amazing. Thank you so much. I think we can always come back to these questions at some point. We'll need follow-ups, but I think that's really some amazing information in there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then the next question we had from someone is, are all carbs bad? So we always hear people trying to get fit, doing exercise, they put on diets where they don't want to have any carbs. So are all carbs bad? What do you think? What do you have to say about this?
Well, vegetables are carbs, right? So when you're thinking about the food on your plate, you've got to think, what is that food going to convert into my body? Okay, so carbs will turn into sugar, protein is going to turn into protein, and fats will turn into fats. But what is on your plate? Okay, now white carbs. Okay, so there are, and so it depends on whose vision you're looking at, or which sort of nutritional therapist or which sort of version of nutrition you're going to go through. But I would say that anything white, anything processed is not going to be good for you. And the reason, so if I'm talking about white pasta, white bread, and generally as a rule, it's not going to be good for you. And the reason being white atta, roti, and the reason is because it spikes your blood sugars. Okay, so the more it spikes your blood sugars, then your body has to produce more insulin to deal with that. Okay, because your glucose goes up, right? And that in itself is what is the problem. Now, if you convert that and you have fiber, so you have brown rice, or you have brown atta, or you should still reduce it. So I'm not an advocate from actually after training, okay, you try every single diet, okay? As a therapist, I suppose it's part of the, you can't ask other people to do something unless you've done it yourself. So, you know, I have tried the gluten-free, I have tried the no wheat, I've tried paleo, I've tried keto, I've tried everything, okay? And I think that in the end, I think we can't get away from individualism, okay? And that actually what is right for you may not be what is right for me. So I might be able to absorb carbs and still get benefit from them. But there are certain carbs which, you know, which aren't going to do you any benefit, but there are other carbs. Now, vegetables are essential. Plant foods are essential for your diet, and they are carbs. Okay. You know, any ground rooted vegetable is going to be quite heavily, you know, in terms of carbohydrates, it's quite high. However, I would say that, you know, those carbs are essential for your diet, okay? And I think that when you're deciding on the foods that you're going to eat, I think you've got to look at the glycemic index. I think that is the most important thing to go by. Vegetables or, you know, breads or whatever it is that you're eating. Now, you know, and the glycemic index is how much sugar is within that food when you eat it. Then therefore you can get very low GI foods. So say if somebody's diabetic, okay, they want to eat everything, but if they go for a low GI diet, that is really, really beneficial for them, because then you are not getting those insulin spikes, okay? And those insulin spikes is what is actually causing the problem, okay? Now, I think that in terms of fats, I think that I'd like to just mention fats here, because I think that there's a lot of misconception about fats in people's diets, and you know, and it's always been seen as the bad guy, but actually fats aren't bad at all. Every cell in our body needs good fat. It's the type of fat. So I'm not saying go and eat, you know, fried chicken every day, or, you know, get some chips, because that obviously is not healthy fats at all. But healthy fats are essential, because every single cell in our body needs it. Our mitochondria, our energy production cells, need fats, but we got to get the right fats into the body, okay? Now, I would say I probably have about, every day 50% of my diet is probably good fats, and then the rest is probably a mixture of protein and vegetables. And then, you know, and I'm not for 1 minute saying that, you know, I don't eat bread. I love sourdough bread. It's my probably one indulgence in life, but you know, like sourdough. But then again, I'm looking at the benefits of that, because that is a prebiotic. That's already digested fibers, so that those fibers are going to give me some benefit in my gut. So that's why I would advocate. So no, I wouldn't say that all carbs are bad. I would say white carbs, processed food. If we want to get off anything, it's about processed food. And there's a great nutritional therapist called Michael Pollan, and he said that if you're eating a food and it's got more than 5 ingredients in it, then you know that food is going to have additives in it. It's going to have preservatives in it, you know. And other nutritional therapists go even further, and they'll say, actually, if it's got a label on it, then it's not food. Okay. So are you eating real food? That's essentially, you know, what we have to question ourselves, you know, because unfortunately, a lot of the food that we eat, I wouldn't say is real food. And the more you become aware of it, there are ways around it. I mean, you know, there's ways around having, because food is about enjoyment. So you know, and if the more you say to somebody, don't eat that or don't eat that, you know, your brain is going to take you right there. So, you know, the psychological part of it is that I never say to somebody, don't eat that. I just say, please add in this to your diet. Please add in this to your diet. And then as a matter of course, they will stop eating those foods which are essentially not very healthy, you know. So I mean, like yesterday I made black bean brownies, and probably shouldn't say it on air just in case my son hears, but he's convinced that they were normal brownies.
That's brilliant.
Made out of beans. And I was just like, okay. I said, yeah. He goes, oh, they're quite nice. And I was like, yeah, they're normal brownies. Okay, so there are ways you can work with different foods, and you know, so that you're not sort of depriving yourself, because you know, there's no need to deprive yourself, but you've got to use the ingredients of the, you know, that's where you're making your choices and you're making the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And very quickly, you mentioned good fats. So what examples would be good fat then? Like quickly, some of them.
Okay, so I would say avocado, I
Okay.
would say all your oils. So, you know, flaxseed oil. So basically oils in themselves, if they're cold pressed oils, they're quite healthy and they're needed.
Yeah.
Okay, so hemp seed oil is great for your omega-3. So we want the balance of omega-3, 6 and 9,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And omega-6 you generally get through your food. Okay, when you're cooking something, you know, you will get omega-6. The ones that which don't really, you don't get enough of are your omega-3. So you've got to make a conscious effort for those, okay? So generally, and then also when we're talking about fats, it's about what we're cooking in.
Okay.
So, you know, I make fresh ghee from raw butter.
Yeah.
And I make that on a regular basis. So that's generally what I cook in. Okay. So that is an essential, healthy way, good, you know, and the Indians had it right. Okay. So using the cooking oil is a trans fat, you know, it's omega, it's going to be highly omega-6. You don't want that. Okay. And plus it's carcinogenic because these, and basically oils all have a smoke point. Okay, and you want to cook in a oil which has the highest smoke point. The highest smoke point is avocado oil. So the only oil I usually cook in is avocado oil. If I can't get hold of avocado oil, then it will be olive oil, but not extra virgin olive oil, just olive oil, which isn't mixed with anything. So you've got to be very careful because a lot of the manufacturers and, you know, the marketing is, yeah, this is an olive oil, but actually, you know, if you look into it, it's not really an olive oil. It's probably a vegetable oil with a little bit of olive oil. But you do, you know, and it costs, but then your health will cost you. And, you know, you want to invest in your health now. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with the problems later on. So, you know, food is medicine and we've got to treat it like that. So hemp seed oil is a great oil. Extra virgin olive oil is a great oil if you are not cooking it. So it's cold pressed. So say say if you're making a dressing, I use that. And I probably put 2 tablespoons. So I probably put a tablespoon of hemp seed oil and a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil in any salad that I have. Okay, so, you know, you can mix it. Then healthy, you know, nuts and seeds. So, because I'm sure there was some questions about hormonal health. So I think they're later on, aren't they? So like seeds are great for balancing hormones. So there is something which, and they give you good fats. I'll come back to the hormone health in a minute. But the seeds are, so sort of sunflower, pumpkin, flaxseed, okay, and sesame seed. All of those, so I grind those and I've got them in a jar and I keep them in a Kilner jar in the fridge and try and have. So if you're having some yogurt, a bit, 2 spoons of, you know, of that on you, and that's going to give you good fats as well. So really, I would say nuts and seeds, okay, and try not to get the salted, and because they'll have additives on them. So try, if you're going to like any and do some roasted, do them yourself, get some cashews and roast them yourself, okay, and put, you know, whatever spices you want and then keep them, okay. Just be careful. The other thing, like with fats, is that you have to make sure that they don't oxidize and that they don't get spoiled. So oils will get spoiled due to the light, due to the heat, okay. Those are your 2 main things. So that's why good quality oils are always in a dark bottle. Okay. So when you're buying a good quality oil, like always buy it in a dark bottle, because that's why it's been protected from the sun. Okay. And then always try and keep your oils in the fridge as much as possible, because otherwise oils get very rancid very quickly. And when they become rancid, then they become carcinogenic. Okay. And you know that the oil that you're using, because when it starts to smoke, you know that is creating carcinogens. Okay. So that's why that's probably the main issue. Hence why that's why you buy cold pressed oils, because it shows that they have not been heated. They've been manufactured in a way that has been cold pressed. So they're going to be your healthiest oils and they're not going to damage the body. Then the other thing is, if you are a fish eater, then all the oily fish. So the oily fish are known as the smash fish. So salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines and herring. So they're your 5 oily fish. So trying to have 3 portions of oily fish a week, which is a big ask, I know. But there's ways that you can get it into your diet. That's another way of ensuring that you're getting enough good fats in your diet.
Okay, and then for people who don't eat fish or meat, like what would you replace that with if you were to think about, replacement?
So I would probably say it would have to be sort of seeds and
Okay,
nuts
same. And
and
avocado,
avocado
yeah,
oil, those
yeah.
are going to be your main. Olives are another great one.
Okay,
Great good fats.
okay.
They have great good fats in, but those are uh, probably those that you can go for. But
Okay.
actually but combining the two is the best
Yeah.
way to do it. So say if
Okay.
you're having some salmon and you encrust it with flaxseed
Yeah.
and garlic and ginger
Yeah.
ground up, and then just bake it 15 minutes. That's the
Yeah.
best way. But I do understand,
Mhm.
that it's people's choices, right?
Yeah,
And
of course.
I would say that you have to work with people's choices,
People's choices. Yeah.
and that's the best way. But you will
Yes.
find that actually, so if you have your people have the DNA testing done, they
Yeah.
usually find that most people are actually, they do benefit from some fish
Fish. Yeah.
and meat based on that ancestral,
Yeah.
uh, lineage really. And
Yeah.
however, I completely understand when
Yeah.
people, I've got a daughter, she's vegetarian, and she's now
Okay.
14 years old, and she's always refused meat and she will not touch
Wow.
it. So
Okay.
um, just about make her eat fish,
Yeah.
but she said when I'm 18 I'm not eating eggs, I'm not eating fish, I'm not eating meat.
Wow.
So that's a choice that
Yeah.
she's made,
Yeah.
and she's made like that. I can't say to her that
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
that's the choice she will make.
But yeah. Yeah. I'm
But
sure.
I would just say, if you're vegetarian,
Yeah.
sorry,
No. No. Go ahead.
as a vegetarian, you've just got to be conscious of where you're getting your protein from and how much you're getting, because you always have to remember that vegetarian protein sources are not absorbed as well
Mm-hmm.
as meat and fish. So for example, I'll finish on this point, then we can move on to the
Yeah.
next question.
Yeah.
If you're having 100 grams of meat, red meat, then you're going to get 50 grams absorbency of protein within that. Okay,
Okay.
if you're having if you're having fish or you're having white meat, then you get about a third. Okay, so if I'm having 100 grams, I'm going to get 30 grams of protein. But if I'm eating vegetable protein, any lentils, dals, or
Yeah.
anything like that, okay, then actually the absorbency is only 25%.
Okay.
So actually you need to double your intake in the grams of protein you're eating on a daily basis to meet your protein requirements. Okay. And as a general rule, they say 0.8 grams by your kilograms in weight, okay, is generally a rule of how much protein you need on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But
Thank
that's
you
just
so much.
something
Yeah.
to be conscious of. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like I'm already I am overwhelmed with this amazing information. I really am looking forward to going back to this and listening and taking my notes down. So yeah, the next question that I received from someone was about post-maternity vitamins. So like, what's your take on that? Like, is there anything you recommend in terms of nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, see, post maternity, did you say? Yeah. So post maternity, I mean, essentially, your body's depleted, right? You've carried this baby, and then the consequences of having the baby itself is going to be, it's tiresome on the body, and you've got to make an effort to think about your food. In terms of vitamins, I would say, and minerals that you need, the biggest depleted, our body uses magnesium and B vitamins the most, okay, in anything that we do. So that it will go to that as a resource, the first thing it will do. And I would say generally in terms of well-being, I would say that, everyone should be taking magnesium on a daily basis and a B complex on a daily basis. Those are probably my go-to, because magnesium has multiple functions within the body, and it regulates so many different functions, so it's essential. But there's lots of ways to get magnesium into the body. So post-pregnancy, you're exhausted. If you can find an hour a week just to have a soak in the bath with Epsom bath salt, so that's magnesium sulfate. So Epsom bath salts you can buy from absolutely everywhere now. You go to these they're in the supermarkets everywhere, and BM Bargains and all of these places, they do them. And actually 1 cup of those into the bath, and it allows for absorbency. So remember that whatever we put on our skin is 70% of it is absorbed into our body. So magnesium can be absorbed. So if you can't get into the bath, a foot soak with some magnesium sulfate in, okay?
Okay.
Otherwise, magnesium, so there's different levels of magnesium, but I would say an overall magnesium glycinate is like for sleep, magnesium citrate, and malate is more for energy. So those are really, but you can get a highly absorbed magnesium, which I would be really conscious, making sure you get a good quality one, okay? When it comes to supplements. And then a B complex, I think, is essential. And then if you are not getting enough fats, I would say either a fish oil or an omega-3 oil. So, there are omega-3 oils which are vegetarian, like flaxseed oil is usually the alternative, or hemp seed oil. And then a probiotic. Okay, so to make sure that you're replenishing the gut, because you are depleting the body's energy resources. And then in terms of diet, I'd probably say, think about what you're putting in, as in how much you get in, value for what you're eating. And that's where I always think, like, what is the nutritional value of what I'm eating? So the more you can pack in, the better. So one way to pack things in is just to do a green juice. Like if you can juice, like 5 or 6 vegetables and have that, and then you put some protein powder into that, that is going to be excellent source of providing you with the nutrients that you need, and to boost your energy levels. And then I would say, and you would have to think about your protein as well. I would say that the protein is probably quite important, because you need it, it's a basic building block for our own existence. So we do need to think about the protein that we're having, whichever source of protein you're having, whether it's vegetable or meat proteins. But definitely the go-to would be magnesium, B complex, and that would be a whole B complex, fish oil or a omega-3 oil, and then a probiotic. I think that would really support, and that's essential for women in general, to be honest, whether they are PMS or whether there is perimenopausal or menopausal or older ladies, because I did see one question about stiffness, wasn't it? About bones and aches and pains. Usually the greatest thing is magnesium for that. And if you're elderly, you can't get into the bath, then the other way, you can actually get magnesium oil and magnesium gels. So there's a company that is called Better You, and their products are quite clean. So the only thing I would say is make sure there isn't anything else added into that magnesium. So you've got to become a detective, you've got to read the labels, because like I said, marketing is marketing, and things are marketed to us as being healthy, as being clean, but actually they're not. So but I know that Better You is quite, and they do it in Holland and Barrett, and I have actually seen them in TK Maxx as well. And then you just use that wherever, and the best place for it to be absorbed is in your inner thighs, if you're using magnesium oil or gel, or just here on your arms as well. I would just, one thing to note about magnesium, however, is that if it stings your body when you put it on, which it often does, that's usually a sign that you are magnesium deficient. One sign to say that your magnesium is optimal is that if you put too much on, or you're having a soak and then you feel that you need to go to the toilet, you've relaxed your muscles too much, that's usually a sign that your magnesium is optimum. But generally, I've not come across anyone who's got optimum magnesium in my 6 years of doing nutrition. I haven't come across anyone. Usually, it's stress, isn't it, right? So the stress in our lives, unfortunately, is the biggest problem over anything else.
And then you said, the magnesium gel, could you also put it on site, or you said inner thighs and here, or could you also put it on the site
you can put it everywhere? You can use it as a moisturizer. So generally what I do is I use the gel as my moisturizer. So you can get, like I said, gel, you can get oil versions of that, you can do magnesium sulfate, Epsom bath salts, or you could actually take magnesium, and I usually mix it with some other type of moisturizer or like an oil, just so that, because the gel can be a little bit sticky, so you can't put your clothes on straight away. But if you put it with oil, it absorbs much quicker.
That's great. So the next question that we have is postpartum hair fall. This actually came from so many people.
Okay. So I would say for postpartum hair fall, I think the first thing you would have to do is go and get a blood test and check whether your iron is whether you're anemic or not, because that's usually the first thing that starts to go. And then secondly, look at your vitamin D, check your vitamin D levels, and always ask for your levels is what I say, and then show them to a nutritional therapist, because what doctors find acceptable, I don't think I would find acceptable, and I would say, right, actually we want a slightly higher level. However, I will say with vitamin D, is that so it's a fat soluble vitamin, so vitamins A, D, E, and K, they can be toxic if you take too much. So it is always important to get your levels checked. However, with vitamin D at the moment, everybody is, we don't get any sunlight. So we're not getting, there's no light. And plus they've already found a link between vitamin D and COVID as well. There's quite a few studies have come out to say that actually low vitamin D or optimum vitamin D does protect you from, hence why it could be one of the reasons why, the Black and Asian increase in COVID infections, because actually we are the ones who are lowest in vitamin D. It could be one of the factors that are at play. So other things I would say, and then there's things like biotin, which actually supports the strength of your hair. I would say coconut oil, massage that in once a week, definitely, because that is very, very enriching for the hair. But the first place I would go is get a blood tester. First place, and then I would say, and then making sure that if you do get an iron, you need an iron supplement. Just be careful with what you have, because often what the doctors prescribe aren't very absorbable irons. So we want to go for iron bisglycinate, which is a lot better absorbed, and it's gentler on the stomach as well, because often people complain either you end up constipated or you end up with diarrhea with one of those, and you don't want that. But I would definitely check iron. And then the greens, so green foods, so again, going for, you can get, if you haven't got the time to make a green juice, like I say, there are green powders that you can get, and you just put a spoon of those, and they're really, really, really good for you, because they're so nutrient dense for you, that they give you so many benefits. And for some people it's done then, you've had one, you've had the green juice, and you've had your powder, but again, it comes back to nutrient density of your diet, right? If you're eating packaged foods and you're not eating, it's all processed, you've got to think, what is the benefit of me eating that? Okay, I'm going to enjoy the taste of it, which is one benefit, obviously. However, from a nutritional point of view, what's the benefit of me eating that? And that's how I think. Okay. Not that I don't eat cakes and biscuits, please everyone, believe me, I do. I suppose I eat less food.
Great. So Rosie, how much time do we have? Like, I know you need to be somewhere, so we can just, or maybe we can have have a follow-up session and cover it another time. But
probably another 10 minutes.
Okay, that's good. So so I have another question on the fruit and veggie shakes as well. So it goes, are fruit and veggie shakes healthy as meal replacement foods?
Okay, so fruit shakes are very different to vegetable shakes or vegetable smoothies or vegetable juices. So with fruit, I always say, limit your fruit intake to 2 a day, and the only reason for that is that actually there's a few reasons for that. One is that we're eating fruit out of season. So there's a lot of conventional thinking about what is right for our body. So if we're in winter and we're eating berries and we're eating pineapple and we're eating melons, actually we wouldn't get access to those in the winter. And you've got to think about where that food has come from. It's come from halfway across the world, and are we supposed to be eating it? The second thing is obviously the sugar, right? So sugar is sugar, right, in whatever form you have it, whether it's agave syrup, whether it's xylitol, whether all these coconut sugar, whether these are all marketing ploys, whether it's brown sugar, whether it's white sugar. Sugar is sugar. And the thing, when you have a fruit juice, you are then having that sugar you're having that fruit without the fiber as well. So if you recall when I was talking about the insulin spikes, that increases, it's going to increase the insulin spike. Okay. Now, there's a great film that people want to watch, and it's called This Sugar Film, or That Sugar Film. And it's an Australian film. You'll find it on YouTube. And this nutritional therapist has actually said, he looked at, fruit juices. And if you drink 1 glass of orange juice, for example, that is probably taken 6 or 7 oranges to make that 1 glass of orange juice without the fiber. If I asked you to eat 6 oranges in one go, you wouldn't be able to do it, because it would be too much and it would fill you up, essentially. Okay, so fruit juices aren't very good. All your fruit smoothies aren't very good. And the reason being, because you're taking the fiber out and then you're just having an insulin spike. So fruits do not juice. If you are going to juice a fruit, it is really for taste, and it's for half an apple put in, or whatever you want to put in, but just don't have a whole fruit juice, because it doesn't give you much benefit. However, vegetable juices, on the other hand, are amazing. So they are very alkalining to the body. And if, and the bitterness of unfortunately, the vegetable juice, the better it is for you. So essentially having, kale and celery and spinach and all the greens, is so healthy for you. And I mean, we've got a juicer. I would say that when you're buying a juicer, if you are to invest in a juicer, you've got to make sure that it's a cold pressed juicer, so it doesn't heat the vegetables up, because if you are heating the vegetables, you're taking the nutrients out. So there's a lot of cold pressed juicers on the market. So I would say definitely go for a cold pressed juicer. And I would say definitely try and juice. I mean, we aim for 3 or 4 times a week, just a vegetable juice, because the thing with juices, you should drink them straight away. Otherwise they get, it's the oxidization again. So when you think you're being really healthy, it's not necessarily that healthy for you. So you've got to be mindful of that as well. So, but as a meal replacement, it depends on what your purpose of that meal replacement is. It depends on what your goal is with the meal replacement. Okay. And like I said, I can't answer that question until I know what the goal is. I generally I don't use it as a meal replacement. I just think of it as a nutrient dense drink that I'm having. But I wouldn't use it as a, but it does fill you up, and it gives you so many benefits that definitely advocate green juices, definitely, without a doubt.
And you could potentially use, when we were talking about the good fats, the seeds, and then you could put those in there, and then you've got that good source of fats as well. So
definitely. I mean, if you feel that you can't, it's got to have berries in, or it's got to have fruit in, then definitely the way to counterbalance that is to get, put some, another thing you can often do with that is put oats in. And grind the oats in as you go with that, and that's actually going to slow, because that will then slow the insulin spike. It will slow the release of the insulin, because the fats and the protein are going to dampen that effect. Okay. But it's fruit juices aren't the healthiest option. They're marketed as a healthy option, but unfortunately they're not really good for you.
So we only have one more question left. Actually, this is a quick one. I'll ask you. So somebody asked, like, they have itchy eyes, and of course we use stuff like topical stuff for it. But is there anything in diet we could change? And I have been having the same problem. Like, I never used to have this, but my eyes are so itchy sometimes.
Okay, so with itchy eyes, again, it goes back to the reason for that itchy eyes. It could be hay fever, it could be food allergies, okay, which could be causing it, intolerances to food. So the first thing I would do is look at your environment, okay, with itchy eyes. So when does it start? How does it start? Is it seasonal? Is it in the morning? Is it in the evening? What is there? Can you relate it to any food? Okay, that might link to that. And I would say that the first thing I would do is probably invest in an air filter, especially when you're sleeping at night. And there's lots on the market, but the air filter purifies your air, and a lot of the time with hay fever and these sorts of problems, that usually is one of the reasons, the pollutants in the air.
Yeah.
Okay. And depending on where you live, traffic pollutants, if you're living on a busy road, that's going to be one of the problems as well. Okay. And then in terms of foods that will, you know, exacerbate that problem, it's going to be the drying foods. So like caffeine is going to be really, really bad, like for your eyes. You know, you want to reduce the caffeine intake that you're having, and then increase, so like try and dampen sort of so the other reason that could be itchy eyes is histamine. So histamine rich foods might be a problem. Now, histamine rich foods, you know, I talked about preserved foods. Those are sometimes not good for people with sort of like any problem with allergens. Okay. Because actually you want to dampen your histamine. So avocados, unfortunately, are really high in histamine. You know, a lot of the preserved food, olives are very high in histamine. So, but I'm not an advocate for saying, okay, you can't eat those ever. But I would say that give your body a break, reduce those, and then actually then build it back up. Okay. So, and then in terms of foods which are very good for the eyes, are foods with bilberry in. So bilberry is the blue colouring of foods. So say blackberries, blueberries, aubergines, all of those are really, really healthy for good eye health. And you can actually get a silver spray as well. So I don't know if people have heard of, so there is, like, it's literally silver. So silver is antimicrobial, it's you know, antibacterial, and you can use that in your eyes as drops, and that can alleviate the itching. So if anybody wants to know what that is, I can tell them the product for that. That's not a problem, but that often is alleviates. But I would say, first of all, I would go with my environment. Definitely check your environment, because it's something that we ignore quite often, you know, and the environment plays a massive part in, you know, unfortunately our world is very polluted now. And so we just need to clear the air that we are breathing, essentially. And, you know, living in big cities, you know, it's really going to be hard pushed to get any clear air.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rosy. This has been absolutely amazing. There's so much to learn, and I can't wait to go back to it and, like, you know, take my notes down. Really, I'm already thinking of the changes I'm already going to do in my diet. So yeah, this has been absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for the time. I'm sure we're going to have to do another follow-up session, because there's been so many questions, and the way you've explained everything has been so amazing. Thank you so much. What an amazing, informative session. Thank you.